I was talking to my cousin recently, and she was very much expressing this sense of instability in her life. And she was telling me how every day just seems to be completely different. She doesn't know what to expect. It's like just a different emotion, a different experience every single day. And she never knows if it's going to be good or bad. So this made me really curious, and it made me want to stop and assess what we can do overall when we are feeling this unease and when we're feeling this kind of instability in our external lives. Something that immediately came up for me when I heard her say this is you can't rely on the external world to give you a sense of ease and stability because the external world is always changing. The one sure thing that happens is that things are always going to be changing, they're always going to be evolving. Things do not stay stagnant. And the only thing that we really essentially have control over is our response to that change. I wanted to consult with my good old friend ChatGPT to see what advice it had to give. I thought I would come on here and just share with you all what ChatGPT had to say about the situation. So, for context, this is what I asked ChatGPT. Speaking as a renowned 21st century philosopher who studied all the classics and unconventional works in philosophy and theology, what's your advice on finding a sense of stability and groundedness when the world at large seems chaotic, bleak, and ultimately doomed? Anyone else feeling that way? And here is what ChatGPT had to say in response. Number one, begin with radical acceptance. Borrowing from Stoicism and Buddhist thought, one of the first acts of sanity is to stop resisting the chaos. The world has always been burning somewhere. The only constant is impermanence. Marcus Aurelius ruled a plague-ridden empire, yet wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Stability starts not with the outer world being calm, but with you no longer demanding it be. So I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. I started talking and just filming this before I actually read the response that ChatGPT output for me. Okay, so this sentiment that I just gave you guys about we can't control the external events and circumstances that are happening to us or around us, but we can control our responses and our emotions to it, how we show up in the world. That basically sums up this. I do think it is very important to be aware of this crucial fact that no matter how much we may want things to be a certain way or maybe not be a certain way, we don't really get a fucking say in how life shows up for us sometimes. For example, how people choose to respond or what they choose to do or what actions they choose to take or not take, whether it be a partner or a loved one, a family member, a friend. We just don't get to control those external factors. The only thing that we can control is just accept what is, but also not to passively give up and be like, fuck it, I guess nothing matters, but to only just acknowledge and come to terms with the fact that this is how this person is, or this is how this situation is unfolding. If that is the case, then how do I want to show up in this instance? How do I need to show up for myself in a way that is going to at least make me feel like I'm doing my part in some kind of way, like I am doing the most that I can do, that I'm doing the best that I can do? Do I need to show up in a way, maybe not for anyone else, but for myself, so that I can actually protect myself and that I can actually feel a sense of groundedness and protection from the external situations that are happening that are actually really causing me a lot of pain and discomfort and unease? It's really important for us to actually take a step back and be able to come to terms with the way things are, accept how things are, and then really think about how we want to respond to these situations. So number two, anchor yourself in the immediate and the eternal. Zoom all the way in, your breath, your relationships, the food on your plate. Then zoom all the way out to the stars, to the billions of years before and after you. This perspective shift is both grounding and awe-inducing. It reminds you that you're both dust and miracle. Simon Weil called this attentive love, being fully here while remembering you are also timeless. This is a really interesting concept to me. I think overall what ChatGPT is trying to say is that we get so bogged down in the immediacy of our little bubbles, of our little lives, that we forget to look at the bigger picture of things, right? So, an example of this, zooming in, would be like actually acknowledging all of the things that you do have in your life. So, instead of focusing on all of this stuff is going wrong, none of this is right, I don't want any of this, let's actually take a moment to just pause and realize, what do I have right now in this moment? I still have my house, thank God. I still have food in the refrigerator. I still have X amount of money in my bank account. I still have my health. My body is physically intact. I still have my mind. I still have my education. I still have this knowledge that I've built up over the last few years. I have air around me that I can breathe, fresh air. It's a lot of little things that we take for granted. I take for granted the fact that I'm a healthy, able-bodied human being, and I have been this way my entire life. I'm very blessed for that, and that I am fully able and capable of providing for myself and being fully independent. And that is something so huge to be grateful for that we absolutely take for granted until something goes wrong. You have these comforts that are actually luxuries that we take for granted. I think that's a very important point that ChatGPT is raising, is very much zooming in on all of this and just acknowledging and being grateful for it on a daily basis and recognizing how abundant your life actually is. I've been trying to incorporate the practice of gratitude in my day-to-day life. When I wake up in the mornings and I meditate, this is something that I'm trying to practice doing. And the other point that it says is zooming out, zooming all the way out and realizing that there's a whole goddamn universe outside of this earth, right? Outside of our little comfort bubbles, there's a whole galaxy and universe full of God knows what, because we don't know. Nobody knows what the hell is out there. But it's really something so fascinating and so incredible to think about. When you actually look at the grand scheme of everything, of like just life on this earth, even the fact that there's life on this earth, when you really zoom out and you start to see how vast this universe is and how expansive everything is, and the fact that we're just like some random life being in the outskirts of God knows where within the universe on this random rock floating in space. It is insane to think about that. And so when you actually take yourself out of your little bubble mind and all of these stupid little thoughts that you have, me included, okay? I'm not like shitting on anyone. Like, this is me as well, saying this to myself. When I take myself out of these stupid little thoughts that I'm constantly having and really think about the vastness of this universe and the significance of it, and like what a fucking miracle it even is that we're alive and able to contemplate our own existence. What is happening? It is unreal. It is so surreal to think about that. And so it's like really taking a step back and able to examine your life on a micro and macro level. And when you're able to do that, when you're able to be grateful for these little things, but you're also able to acknowledge the fact that I'm like a conscious being in this vast universe of nothingness. And how is it even possible that we're here and like able to see this stuff and even able to think about it? It just really opens your mind up in a very different way. If we actually paid attention to this, if we actually, as a human race, as a human species, if we really embodied this in our day-to-day lives, the world would be so different. But what we can do, at least individually, is acknowledge this for ourselves. And I guarantee you that it will change your perspective in life. Moving on to number 3, cultivate soul habits. The world trains you to scroll, panic, react. Soul habits do the opposite. They build depth, rhythm, and resilience. This might be daily solitude or silence, reading spiritually nourishing texts, writing to clarify what you really believe, practicing a ritual, sacred or secular, that reminds you of who you are. As Kierkegaard said, the greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world. Soul habits protect against that quiet erosion. Very beautiful, ChatGPT. I know that there's a lot of people out in this world that will advocate for meditation. And you guys, I'm going to be one of those people. I'm going to be one of those people that advocates for that, because when I tell you that meditation and just sitting in silence for an extended period of time on a daily basis has completely transformed my life. A lot of things have transformed my life, but that is one of the most crucial aspects of a routine, a spiritual routine that has really brought so much peace and clarity to my worldview, to seeing things just in a more grounded way. However much time you have or want to dedicate to this, but just sitting in complete silence and being present with your own body and with your thoughts and starting to just see and acknowledge what thoughts are coming up for you. That's some powerful stuff. It's no joke. It is life transforming, because all of a sudden you start to realize that the thoughts that are coming into your mind are just that. They're thoughts. They're not real. They're not facts. They're not reality. They're just thoughts that you're having that you cycle through on a constant basis, that you never stop to actually question why you're thinking what you're thinking, or if this is good for you, or if there's any other thoughts that you could be thinking. So that's how we get stuck in this negativity or in this cycle of believing that there's nothing more to life and everything's doomed and like this all fucking sucks and nothing matters. It's like you get so stuck in this rhetoric, and you might be seeing it in the external world as well. If you're doom scrolling or if you're consuming certain types of content, you might be hearing the same rhetoric over and over again. And if you keep doing that, you're going to start to believe it, and you're going to start to say it to yourself in your own mind. So it's so important to just pause and stop and don't distract yourself. Just be in silence, be in the moment. Reading spiritually nourishing texts, again, super, super important. If you don't like to read, if you're not like a reading type of person, listening to these things, or maybe even just consuming other videos that are more in depth on spiritual concepts or philosophical concepts, being able to sit and take in some type of educational content that kind of inspires a sense of peace or well-being. There's something about just listening to ancient wisdom from the OGs back in the day, writing to clarify what you really believe. I feel very strongly about this. I have also recently started to incorporate a daily pages is what I call it. I've actually been reading The Artist's Way, and one of the main exercises at the very beginning of the book is doing daily pages. And it basically means just sitting at some point in your day, preferably in the mornings, and just writing 3 pages, just basically brain dumping 3 pages, and just writing anything and everything that comes up, even if it's nonsense. And it has been a really beautiful practice to just bring a lot of clarity into my life, because then all of a sudden I start to realize, oh, I'm having these like weird repetitive thoughts. I'm like thinking the same things over and over again. Or, oh, I'm like really worried about this stuff. Okay, I'm just gonna get it down. Just get it down. Just get it all out. And okay, I'll worry about this later. It's fine. And it just brings a sense of, I don't know, like clarity, a sense of like ease, because all of a sudden you're just removing all of this excess noise from your head. It's basically an exercise to remove excess noise and thought from your mind, because we are constantly thinking as human beings. This is just our nature. We're always going to be thinking. There's always going to be chatter in the mind. It's the monkey mind, right? So what can we do to help minimize that? It's just a really great way of finding a sense of clarity in your life. If nothing else, it at least allows you to see things for how they actually are. Or maybe it allows you to feel a lot deeper and to really understand yourself in a much more cohesive way. And then the last thing, practicing a ritual, sacred or secular, that reminds you of who you are. Again, I think this could also be like a form of meditation. Maybe it could be dance. Maybe it could be some type of creative outlet like painting or playing music or writing music. Maybe it's playing with your dog or your cat because it makes you feel a sense of presence because it reminds you of play. Maybe it's playing with your kid. It's something that reminds you of who you are. Yeah, that grounds you. Something that grounds you. It's a grounding activity. A lot of these activities also, I will say, can be things that you used to love doing as a kid. They could be things that you used to do to pass the time that you absolutely loved and you used to get lost in, and maybe now you don't do them anymore, but they used to bring you a lot of joy. Just making sure that you're tapping into something that feels nourishing to you, right? That feels grounding to you. Let's not let the soul erode slowly, as Kierkegaard said. Number 4, engage in meaningful rebellion. When systems seem irreparably broken, cynicism is easy. But Camus urged us to become rebels, not to destroy, but to affirm what is worth saving. Choose to act as though beauty, truth, and justice still matter. Live deliberately. Help others even when it feels pointless. Create art, grow food, teach, nurture. That is resistance. That is faith. That's very beautiful. I've actually been mulling this kind of concept over a bit, especially in the last few months. There are things that I don't necessarily agree with or am aligned with in my country in the way that things are being run from a systemic standpoint. I know that there's a lot of people who intuitively and inherently want to go out and physically move mountains and do things and do actions that will maybe cause a ruckus or that will maybe help raise awareness. There's an inherent desire to resist the way that things are and how things are unfolding or what is currently happening. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's good for people to voice their opinions, and it's really important for us, especially in a democracy, to be allowed to raise opinions. But I also am realizing for myself that the way that I want to resist and the way that I want to contribute to the world isn't by going out and protesting. It's not by going out into the streets and yelling at the top of my lungs. It's not by arguing with the opposition. The way that I want to resist is not by perpetuating this rhetoric of anger, of fear, of resentment, of blame, of separation, because it hasn't gotten us anywhere up until this point. So a lot of people are protesting and saying, I want things to be this way. Why aren't things this way? I think what we really need to start doing is focusing our attention on building the type of world that we actually do want to live in. What do we want to see? What do we want to cultivate? How do we want to be showing up for not just ourselves, but for other people? What would that ideal world look like? And how do we cultivate that type of environment, that type of community, and that type of world? For me, it's making these videos. Even though I hate showing my face, even though I am very hesitant to talk about my personal opinions and my personal beliefs with other people, I really do think that we're at a crucial and pivotal moment in the world where it's honestly my responsibility to show up in this way and to have these types of conversations and to cultivate a kind of community where we're not blaming other people and we're not just spewing more anger and hatred, but where we're actually cultivating a sense of authenticity and a sense of internal harmony and balance and truth and love. Because if I don't do that, then what's the alternative? I'm just going to be an angry, bitter person yelling at the top of my lungs and nothing's going to change and I'm just going to be exhausted all of the time. I can't guarantee that anything is going to happen with me doing the opposite of that and trying to spread love and trying to be a good person. I can't guarantee that anything good is going to come out of that or that it's going to make any kind of difference. But the only thing that I can guarantee is that I will at least feel like a much happier person and I will be in a much better mental state of being. And I will be able to provide for those closest to me and even in outer circles in a much more positive way. So that's my little spiel on meaningful rebellion. Take it as you will, but I hope that resonates with you guys. Choose your sources of reality carefully. The media diet is the spiritual diet of the modern person. Most of what we consume is engineered for outrage, comparison, and despair. Curate your reality. Feed your mind with thinkers, mystics, and artists who speak to the parts of you that still believe something higher is possible. As the Gospel of Thomas says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. I'm actually going to be speaking about this in another video, basically talking about why I quit social media and how it has completely changed my life in just a matter of months. In addition to cutting out social media completely, I have also basically stopped consuming the news. So I am very careful and very specific about what I consume. And I can't tell you guys how incredibly relieving it has been to not constantly be bombarded by information, by updates, by just content that is not actually serving me, that was not actually providing anything beneficial in my life besides distraction, besides noise. I think that being very selective about what I'm consuming, coupled with the fact that I'm journaling and meditating, has brought such a sense of clarity into my life over the last few months, and it has been incredibly beneficial to me. I do think it's really important, even if for whatever reason you feel like you can't get off of social media, I think it's really important to be very specific and very intentional about the types of accounts that you follow, the types of content that you're actually choosing to engage with and to consume, what shows you're watching, what movies you're watching, what you're falling asleep to is actually also a really important thing. I don't think people really pay attention to this or realize how powerful the subconscious mind is. If you are just constantly watching or listening to the news while you're working, while you're just like doing things around your house, all of that shit is just getting absorbed in your mind. And it's not just the news, it's anything and everything that you might be listening to. It's including any type of music, specific music that you're listening to, specific shows or movies that you're watching, any kind of just content that you're consuming. All of that is, whether you're actively paying attention to it or not, it's getting consumed, it's getting absorbed into your subconscious mind. And it's impacting you and it's affecting the way that you think. You have to be very careful about what you give your attention to. That is so huge. Number 6, be of this world, but not consumed by it. You do not need to escape into a mountain cave, but you can live as a grounded, lucid presence inside the madness. To be spiritually sober is not to be detached, but to care deeply without being destroyed. It's to love the world without needing it to love you back. I recently watched a video from a spiritual leader, but she was giving a talk about basically the same exact topic. She was talking about how to deal with the external noise and chaos of a crazy world and how do you stay grounded in all of that. And one of the analogies that she gave was so incredibly helpful and it resonated so deeply with me. You are a human being that has a lot of potential, but you only have so much capacity. So think of yourself as a sponge, right? As a sponge, you are able to absorb a certain amount of liquid. But after a certain point, when there's too much liquid, when there's just an excess of liquid, nothing is going to happen. And all of this liquid is just going to start to spew out of you. You're not going to have the capacity to hold on to all of this liquid, especially if you're like a sponge and you're put in a sea, for example. There's no fathomable way for you to be able to consume the whole ocean's worth of water if you're just a sponge of this size, of this capacity. There's just no way. You have to set boundaries for yourself. There does need to be a level of acceptance within all of us that this is my capacity and this is where I have to tap out and this is where I have to set this boundary for myself, because at the end of the day, I have to protect myself, because if I do not, then I'm going to be completely consumed and chewed up and spit out by this crazy, mad fucking world that I have no control over. So this just goes back full circle into what we were initially talking about. How do you deal with the chaos in the world, right? I think a huge part of it has to do with setting those limits and those boundaries for yourself and being very clear about what those boundaries are and what those limits are. We need to come to terms with things. We need to practice that radical acceptance, and we need to disconnect and allow ourselves to be renourished by the things that actually do bring us stability and that bring us back to our true authentic selves. I think that's basically the gist of this entire video and of the advice that ChatGPT laid out for us. That's all we can really do at the end of the day. And I know that it always is going to seem like the world is falling apart and everything is crashing down. I can very safely say that since the beginning of time, all of humanity that's ever existed has always felt this way, which is really fucked up and has actually a lot to say about just our human condition as a whole. But at the end of the day, the world hasn't ended. People and situations and nations and countries have completely changed, but we're still here. And until the world is actually fully done with us and some massive catastrophe that completely wipes out the human race happens, we're probably going to continue to be here. So, that being the case, I think it's really important to disconnect from the external world and to reconnect with your internal self. Try to cultivate a sense of peace and stability within yourself. Because at the end of the day, that's all we really got is ourselves. And if we're not showing up for ourselves, then nobody else is going to. Okay, that's it from me. I will leave you with final thoughts from ChatGPT. And I will ask you guys one other question because I am super curious. I want to hear from you guys. If and when you grab that same prompt and ask ChatGPT the exact same question, what responses do you guys get? Because it's going to be different for every single person. It always is, just depending on who ChatGPT is talking to. So I'm super curious, did you get similar responses or how was it different for you? Leave your responses below in the comments. I'm super curious to hear what you guys got. Final thoughts. Your stability is not found in the condition of the world. It is found in the position you take in response. You're not here to fix everything. You're here to remain human, heart open, feet grounded, soul awake. And in doing so, you become a quiet lighthouse in a dark sea. Not perfect, but steady.